Welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you for downloading. My name is Pete Wright, and I'm here with Megan Strand.
Hello.
And Dane Christensen.
How there.
And we are the Naked Marketers, and we have a great show for you today. It's sort of a, how do we say it? Impromptu? Would that be, Dane? What would you call this show?
No, this is guerrilla podcasting,
guerrilla.
man.
It is totally guerrilla podcasting.
Yeah, this is kind of where you say, "Wait, our guest backed out. Who do we know?" And you just start rapid firing, and it's actually a great way to go because, it's something we could do all the time. I think just say like, "Okay," and it's sort of like spin the bottle or whatever, and you just who's sitting at their desk and bored right now, who's really smart, really engaging, and has a lot of fascinating information to share.
And as a result, we found one of those people.
We lucked out.
Found one of those people.
We did. We did totally luck out, and
it's an exciting show. It was exciting for us.
That's right.
That's the truth. That is the truth. So we've got a great interview coming up a little bit later. We are going to be talking to the good Mr. Jake Poinier from BoomVang Creative. Jake is a professional copywriter, been in the business for decades now, and he's going to share with us some tips and tricks on getting your creating the best copy you can and why it's important to use the professional people when you're working on your big marketing project. So we have a great discussion with Jake. Looking forward to that coming up. For now, we have the news. What do we have to talk about this week, Megan?
Oh, I get to lead it off?
Yeah, why don't you?
I think the first thing we were going to talk about was this great article on Outspoken Media on social media, 10 reasons you should run like hell from social media. And really the author is a proponent of social media, but it's one of those, here are reasons maybe you're not suited for social media. And I think it actually does a really good job. Things like you have no social skills, you have no sense of humor and can't handle criticism. You forget about it in the morning. Openness is a problem for you. You're only there to sell. Let's see what else. Well, I don't want to talk about number 7 because that leads into our next pathetic story, so I'll save that one. The one I like the most on this list is you think Twitter is a social media strategy, and I realize we're probably preaching to the choir, but this is something we at the Naked Marketers talk about a lot. Social media is not a strategy. It's merely a channel and a tool for implementing a good marketing strategy. It's another component of it. So, it's not a strategy in and of itself.
And they use a good metaphor here. You don't buy a hammer and expect the house to come with it. You create a blueprint, allocate the other resources you'll need for the job, and you spend the time to build out what you're looking for.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And I think, as we talk to people more and more, and the bigger the company, the more I think you tend to see things like this. I think the one thing she doesn't have in here, I feel like it's a she, I don't even know. No, it is. By
They're
Lisa.
all women. Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
No, it's Lisa. Yeah. Lisa Barone wrote this.
But I was going to say, and that's why it's so smart, of course. But I think the thing that she misses in here, maybe I'm not seeing it right out, but I sort of expect to see it as its own little number, is just that you want to have control over everything that's said about you. So that's, something we.
Well, yeah. I mean, number 4, openness is a problem for you, is kind of along those lines. But yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
so.
Yeah, and so it's you have no sense of humor and can't handle criticism. I think it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of, you can kind of break out what you're saying, and I think some of the ways that they have, but.
Go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say, it's been interesting to see, but and I think it'll continue to be, interesting to see which companies adopt social media strategies and do them well, which ones, who holds out and why, and that whole notion of, our conversation with Jake gets into this a little bit, but controlling the message and approval of ad copy and, sort of the old line of thinking about being pretty protective and careful about what is said about you. I think all three of us and anybody really who's in the social media game will say, well, gosh, if you don't get in the game, it kind of doesn't matter. Like those concerns don't matter because you are being talked about. It is happening. You know you can't control it in the way you wish you probably could, but it's going to happen whether you're in the game or not. It's just happening.
Well, the reason I like this article is I think this could be a really good tool when you're working with some people that are a little bit hesitant to show them and share with them some of, this article as a way of sort of making light of people may then see what they're doing when you show them something like this, because it kind of makes you look like an over-controlling freak if you I mean,
it's funny. Have you guys read the just in terms of contrast on the dark side of an open culture? Did you guys catch any of the Adobe Apple kerfuffle this week between the Adobe evangelists writing about? Let's see. I think it's Lee Brimlow wrote on his blog, on the Adobe blog, the Adobe Flash blog. This week, this is kind of an Apple heavy show, so we'll talk more about Apple next week. But
sorry
this week,
in advance.
This week, there was a lot of stuff going on with Apple. This week, they announced that they gave out a developer preview of iPhone OS 4, and there's lots of great stuff in there, and some not so great stuff. One of the bits of not so great stuff is a new piece of legal language that says no app on the iPhone will be allowed in the App Store and allowed on the iPhone if it is from a cross-compiler or compiled from a language that is not approved. And why is this bit of geekiness appropriate? Well, because Flash, Adobe in Creative Suite CS5, which is coming out later this year, has a tool for taking Flash applications and converting them or cross-compiling them into iPhone apps, which you can then sell on the store right now. Well, as of iPhone OS 4, that is no longer allowed. So if you're Adobe,
you're mad.
You just took it because you've spent a lot of time building this tool, beta testing this tool, and effective this summer, this tool will mean absolutely nothing. It will be a lead balloon. Now, it's just one tool in the whole suite, so that's a whole other story. Lee Brimlow is a Flash evangelist, and he wrote on his blog, and I'm going to read a little bit of it because I think it's interesting in this discussion of transparency. Personally, I will not be giving Apple another cent of my money until there's a leadership change over there. I've already moved most of my book, music, and video purchases to Amazon, and I will continue to look elsewhere. Now, I want to be clear that I'm not suggesting you do the same, and I'm also not trying to organize some kind of a boycott. Me deciding not to give money to Apple is not going to do anything to their bottom line, but this is equivalent to me walking into Macy's to buy a new wallet, and the salesperson spits in my face. Chances are I won't be buying my wallets at Macy's anymore, no matter how much I like them. Now, let me put aside my role as an official representative of Adobe for a moment, as I would look to make it clear what is going on through my mind at the moment. Go screw yourself, Apple. Comments are disabled, as I am not interested in hearing from the Cupertino comment spam bots.
Oh.
Now, what is your take on that kind of a post from an evangelist of Adobe to another company?
That doesn't strike me as so smart.
Well, I mean, it's the
I get what he's saying, but
yeah.
I mean, you're talking about Apple here, dude. I mean, and I know you're pissed, and I don't know. I just don't know that that's the most effective way to have a conversation about your frustration with their new requirements. I don't know.
And I think when you're using the media or blogs or media are blogs, but you're trying to represent a company. Yeah, I think that there's a bit of pettiness, like an air of pettiness, at least in what he's saying, in my opinion, because I don't know. I mean, it's sort of what people don't like is the shock of the decision being made without the appearance of negotiation or something like, here's the new blanket way we're moving forward, and then you kind of have your immediate response to that if you're a third party partner or a competitor or whatever, that okay, wait a minute, this smacks of something. But I don't know, I mean, you can't kind of take the day after Steve Jobs makes an announcement and say, I'm going to be real petty about this, because
I don't even think it's petty. I just think it's not strategically smart.
It's probably not petty. It just has an air of pettiness.
Yeah.
It seems a little
jerkish, yes.
I don't know, Peter. What do you think?
Well, it's one of those things that it's. I'm in favor. I disagree with what he said and how he said it, but I am in favor of him being able to say it, and I think that it was personally strategically unsound of him to say it this way. There are a lot of people who, really question the role of the evangelist at any company, and I don't think he did his own credibility any good by doing this. Now, it's on an Adobe branded blog. It's on the Adobe Flash blog, and that's an unfortunate place to put these sorts of name-calling insults.
Well, yeah, like one of the most successful companies in the world right now will not receive another dime from me, the evangelist for this company, on the corporate branded blog.
And the bigger problem, I think, is
go down for him.
it doesn't take into account Adobe's rather loose relationship with this exact same sort of behavior in the past. It's a bit of the pot calling the kettle black. I mean, Adobe has had the same ham-handed legal tactics for Flash and development over the last decade too. So I think that's unfortunate, but it gets back to this article that we were talking about, which is you got to be if you don't have somebody who has a sense of humor and you don't have somebody who can actually write a sane response to complicated political and legal issues, then maybe they're not the person to fit that blogger or customer service representative or, God forbid, evangelist role at the company. And that's really what we're saying. So it's a matter of choosing the voices, critically and sanely.
I think I was just going to say, I think it's a perfect segue into the next thing we were going to talk about. And this goes back to something that I learned very early on in my career, thank goodness, that if you don't want other people to know what you're saying about them, really you should never put something like that in writing. I mean, obviously in this case it's not relevant. He did want them to know. But similarly with voicemail messages.
These are the best.
Does somebody want to talk about eVest? Because
I want you to.
I don't want to talk about it. I think Peter should talk about it.
Well,
I just think it's a perfect
created that awesome segue.
I don't think
crafted the perfect intro
story.
All right.
Well, okay. So Scott Jordan is the CEO of Scott eVest. They're a technical clothing company. If you have a lot of gadgets that are heavy and you wear them in many pockets, or you want more pockets in which to wear them,
which who doesn't?
Seriously. Then you need to go to Scott eVest because they make clothes that would help you. Now, anyway, point is this: the wrong person got in a relationship with Scott eVest as a customer. His name's Loren Feldman, and he is a proprietor of 1938 Media. They make video for the web, and he is a very outspoken blogger. He's been around for a long, long time, and he's fantastic to read. He's very entertaining to read, and is very informative. And he happened to buy some Scott eVest pants, and they failed. The pants broke, and Loren wrote on his blog that the pants failed. So Scott Jordan, unfortunately, got on his own little platform and left a message for Loren Feldman, calling him a douche, calling his wife a douchette repeatedly, and calling him fat, and that's why the pants failed. So this is the CEO of this company calling a customer a fat douche.
Smart.
We're going to boil it down. That's what happened. So if we sort of zoom out,
and on about. I mean, he just is rambling.
He does.
And you know what it reminds me of, you guys, in a very, very loose fashion. Because. Well, okay, I'll tell you. It kind of reminds me of, let's say, a young Hollywood starlet, maybe at a party in Hollywood. Let's just say,
drunk,
doing something dumb. And somebody there has a little video camera. It gets captured. It gets posted, and they blame the person with the camera. It's one of these sort of sticky, messy. We used to have a lot more control over what happened and the media and what got let out. And now in Hollywood, for instance, it's really very difficult for these people to get away with what they used to be able to get away with because of social media and because of technology and cameras and all that kind of thing. Similarly, companies, I think, are really struggling with the fact that the message is so out of their control in some places. And so this sort of response, this angry, I'm going to go after the customer and the guy that made a comment about my product on his blog in just a terrible way. I think it was a Virgin Atlantic flight, or Virgin America or whatever, that LA to New York, a month ago, where they ended up on the tarmac. They got redirected from JFK to somewhere upstate and had to sit there for hours. And the owner of a social media company was on that plane blogging the entire time.
Yeah.
And the worse it got, the more it was like, oops.
Yeah.
You know, it's so, I guess, so the very loose thing here is like companies need to sort of have that sense that, you know, what we do can really get out there. We don't know if this customer has big sway or, you know, 10,000 Twitter followers or has his own personal blog. We don't know that when they come into the store and they're upset, or, you know, they're having bad customer service experience. The same way, you know, a Hollywood star doesn't know who at the party, you know, might take a video or a picture and throw it up on the web.
I'm sorry, but who does that? I can't imagine calling anybody I know.
I guarantee you this isn't the only time this has happened.
Oh, of course not. If I am that pissed off at somebody, I need to go figure it out. Like, if I want to pick up the phone and call them a douchebag, I'm sorry. I just cannot see myself ever doing that, even if I really, really wanted to.
Now, I don't know Scott Jordan's response. I mean, he may say, "Oh, we're good friends, and we, you know, we."
No, that wasn't.
Well, I'm just saying. You know, I was saying it in jest. Would you call
Dane and call him a douchebag and his wife a douchette?
Anytime. Not his wife. I know his wife.
If he hires a good PR agency, he may do exactly what you're saying, Pete.
Yeah.
I think a good PR firm would say, "Oh no, I was joking."
Because you know what the response is?
It's not
Let
funny.
me tell you what the response is. The response is, "Here, Lauren Feldman, here is a gross of new pants in all sizes. Try on the 50 pair that you want and keep them all. Sell them to your friends, whatever. Give him what he wants." And don't put demands on his response to get his money. But this is the latest quote from Lauren Feldman that Scott Jordan apparently demanded, quote, "demanded I take down all my blog posts and negative product reviews across the internet as conditions for making amends and refunding money for the pants."
Yeah.
Oh, these are the kinds of things that you never know if, you know, CNBC or you know, whatever, CNN are going to just pick up on a slow news day and say, "A customer of Scott Evest, who also is a blogger, blah, blah, blah," you know, and play a little clip, and all of a sudden you've really done your brand some damage.
Exactly.
And you look like an idiot. I'm sorry. That's all I could think of when I heard that voicemail. Like, you're an idiot.
You're an idiot. And it goes back to the main point of this, which was the original article, that is, you know, just maybe your CEO is not the right voice for this particular tool. That's what we're saying. All right. So we now have to talk about Tiger Woods. This ad is too good. Please, somebody talk about this
Dane,
ad.
this is you, because you've got a good follow-up quote to
this
it.
This is great.
Yeah, you know, my introduction to this ad was on one of my favorite blogs of all time, Video Gum. I don't know who all reads that one, but I like it quite a bit. And just funny commentary on TV and movies and commercials and all kinds of things. So the ad, I don't know. I mean, since it's a podcast and we can't really play the ad, let's just assume folks have seen that it's...
we'll link to it, too.
Yeah, we'll link to it. It's Tiger Woods in black and white with this... you had a description of his face, sad and sorry, wasn't it?
Pathetic
looking. Oh, he looks bad.
Just a pathetic looking face. Yeah,
this guy's been beaten up, you can tell.
I don't know if they... I don't know.
Can you imagine being the video person shooting this? Just look really pathetic.
Yeah, I know.
Stand there and look pathetic.
Yeah, like Austin Powers, you know, video shoot. I don't know how they normally do with models. Like, give me sexy, give me tiger, give me a. You know,
now you're
case,
angry.
Give me pathetic. No, give me your dog just died. No, give me you've really disappointed your dead father, for instance, because that's what this is. I mean, that's the bottom line of this particular ad, and. A little something from Gabe on Video Gum says, "I recognize the discrepancy between his squeaky clean media image and his squeaky gross sexual obsessions. And we do live in America, where the cycle of despair and redemption must constantly be renewed. But this, yuck. Aligning the dissolution of one's marriage with the world's most recognizable sportswear brands as a tool for selling more breathable heat tech tees is one thing, one miserable thing that would be a mistake, but invoking the memory of one's dead father as a limp-wristed attempt to turn the entire fiasco into a personal growth opportunity. Just very.
He goes on.
I don't know. It's not like it's not. It's not like it's a completely ineffective, forgettable ad, and so I don't know if that's maybe the playbook here, but I don't see it as, oh, good idea.
I think it was actually well received. I'm not saying I agree. I'm just.
You think the ad was well received? Is that what? I am
basing that on practically nothing. I just have this weird sense that people thought it was classy.
The best line I think of Gabe's, he actually leads with the punchline, which is, look, I think that I am like many Americans in that I don't care about Tiger Woods' pants.
Right.
The only thing I have to say is that, the apparently reaction is mixed. Weird and creepy seem to be the prevailing sentiments, according to the Washington Post. But I have to say, like, if you're Nike and you're need to put something on the air before the Masters, what are you going to put on? Just a normal Tiger Woods is a complete stud at golf sort of commercial? I mean, you have to do something.
You know who this was? Was this Wyden and Kennedy, perhaps?
I don't know who has the Nike.
I mean, Wyden does a whole lot of Nike. I wonder.
The Nike TV?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But, I mean, think about it. What else? You have to do something different. It can't just be...
No, you're right. You have to do something different.
So...
And this is not forgettable. I mean, this is going to stick with you a little bit. And I think, the race for sort of competition, with brands today, a lot of brands I think are willing, at times at least, to gamble with the ad that's going to be talked about outside of when it's seen.
Right.
And that's what happens here. So, I don't know that anybody's damaged here. You know what I mean? Like this.
Well, it is Wyden and Kennedy, by the way. No.
Is it?
No.
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, okay.
No. Well, okay. What's next?
What's next? Okay.
This is speaking of another advertising icon.
Let's talk about controversial because I think we're going to have a little bit to say about this. So, I found this Retire Ronald campaign and hold on, I want to get it right. The Corporate Accountability International, I think they're a nonprofit organization, is launching a campaign to retire Ronald McDonald because they say for nearly 50 years, no one has been better at hooking kids on unhealthy foods, spurring an epidemic of diet-related disease. Ronald deserves a break, and so do we. So they have this whole, sign the card and wish Ronald a speedy retirement. They literally have an entire website called retireronalds.org. And, they've made the correlation between Ronald McDonald and Joe Camel, saying the reason that kids are obese in this country and eating fast food is because of Ronald McDonald, essentially. And I guess I am not a proponent of children eating fast food. I know that childhood obesity is a huge epidemic in our country. I just don't know that Ronald McDonald per se is the reason for that. And I don't think it's fair to make a correlation between Joe Camel and Ronald McDonald. I think it's a stretch. And my biggest problem with it has to do with Ronald McDonald House, which is a fabulous organization that I don't think gets a whole lot of funding from McDonald's, if any. And, I guess that's my biggest problem with it. So, Dan, I know you had an opinion on this, but it just...
Yeah. Well, no, my opinion somewhat parallels. And I think it's, I think from McDonald's perspective, if it was just a case of, well, okay, so they want us to get rid of this character. You know what? This character really doesn't sell that many hamburgers or Happy Meals. We're going to make plenty of money without him. But they've already invested so much, which is going to be, it's just kind of a cost issue, I think, in a lot of, all of the places that he shows up. And then charities, which is kind of what they've done with the character because they've needed to. I mean, it's not the healthiest place, and they have a reputation of, getting kids, kind of targeting kids with unhealthy food, which 20 years ago wasn't, it was like, yep. Okay, so that's what it is.
Maybe it's the playgrounds that are targeting kids in McDonald's.
But we didn't have the obesity problem back then. So it was like, people were willing to just accept that, like, yeah, we don't eat McDonald's every day, every meal. we get that they're targeting our kids. Our kids love it, so we take them there, but we take them there occasionally. And, it's not like this big conspiracy out to ruin our lives. But, when people get this sort of mentality that like, okay, no, there's something going on. What do we do? And this is, I don't know. I'm just not a fan of this kind of a reaction, regardless of the product and the advertising, to say that, somehow it's so powerful, like it has so much control over you that you have to attack the advertising. I just hate that, just from the get-go. I don't really like that. I just don't like that approach.
Peter, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a bit disingenuous to put Ronald McDonald at the same chair as Joe Camel and the Marlboro Man. I didn't find Spuds MacKenzie much of an offensive character myself, but apparently they've got him sitting at the table too. I think it's once again, I understand the reaction. I'm in favor of their ability to do this. I think it's in the end ineffective because I just don't feel like people associate Ronald McDonald as the source of the trouble. I think the general public may find, the general public who doesn't eat at McDonald's and has a problem with their, with the Food Inc. Public,
right?
Doesn't see Ronald McDonald as the problem. The problem is the food.
Well, and I'll tell you right now, if you were going to go after my kids, if you were going to say, hey, we need a strategy to keep Dan Christensen's kids, we don't want them to want McDonald's, what should we do? Then take the toys out of the Happy Meals.
Exactly.
That is their number one. I'll buy those kids a Happy Meal, and they won't eat it because they want the toy. And I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Like, you have to say, eat your food, but then I'm catching myself saying, that's not food. Maybe it's better you don't eat it. Let's go get some carrots and celery. And
I think that's the real issue. And I also don't think, I think this in particular is a market problem, right? I mean, there is sort of, this is the era of Starbucks, and you can sort of see that McDonald's is fragmented. You drive down the street, and on one side you have the old style kind of 1955 Starbucks of the bright yellow and orange and red, and on the other side of the street is a McDonald's that looks like a Starbucks. It's all muted green and tan, and and there are no arches anywhere. It looks, the font is now Helvetica on this new kind of branding style of these restaurants. And I think that's just another sign that McDonald's doesn't really know who their audience is. Mm-hmm. So I think Ronald McDonald may be on his way out, not as a result of people angry that Ronald McDonald, the icon, markets, kids' food to kids. And that really is the bigger issue, right? I mean, McDonald's had or has kids' products. They might not be healthy, but they are kids' products. They're designed for kids. The Happy Meal looks like it's a kid product. It's designed for children. And Joe Camel, the problem with Joe Camel was it was not a kid's product. And it was being marketed allegedly toward children illegally. Those are two totally different things.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. I when I was a kid, you know what I loved? I loved candy cigarettes. Doesn't that seem like the craziest? Like, if you were to show up today and say, "Hey, you know what we need? We need, let's just say, we need a Budweiser for children."
Gummy Bud.
You'd never get away with that today.
No, you wouldn't. But at the same time, when I was a kid, I loved my my full-sized 45 water gun.
By the way, I never grew up smoking.
They still have those.
Yeah, I know, and I would still love them.
And you probably will kill people.
And yet, I have never actually raised a gun in anger. All right. So anyway, I think this is kind of a campaign fraught with a whole lot of nothing, and I'm
I agree.
Get somebody attention.
But I love that these people have the right to say it. That's great.
I'll give you that.
All right. What's next?
I actually think we should talk about your new toy.
Oh, okay. So I got this new toy. And we sort of, we knew it was coming, the iPad.
Children.
We knew, hey. Oh, no. Really? Really?
Come on.
All right. We knew it was coming. The iPad was launched on Saturday the 3rd. I have had it for a week now and have been using it daily. Have not It actually hasn't left my hands.
Do you sleep with it?
Well, I sleep next to it, very close. I leave it on a soothing.
That's not good for you.
A soothing video that plays throughout the night of
So cool.
Yanni.
Video of you sleeping from the night before.
Yeah, it's a time delay. I quite like it. I think there's a lot of hand wringing right now about what the platform does and that it's a big iPod Touch. And let me assure you, in my opinion, this is not an iPod Touch. Those who say it's an iPod Touch haven't really given it the run through. I think it is an extremely powerful and nimble computer. And to take a phrase from Andy Anatko at the Chicago Sun-Times, it's the first new computer we've seen in 25 years. And that's it's saying a lot. I think the real secret to it is one that is still to be unveiled and will kind of be evolving over time, which is the developer community. I mean, if Apple can really make good on keeping developers interested, then the apps that come out, next week and next month and next year are what's really going to make this device, incredible. For me, there are some apps that I have downloaded that have already changed my workflow and allow me to capture and create content digitally in a much more efficient way than I ever have been able to do in the past. And that is a very powerful thing, seeing as it's only been out for a week. And these apps, the developers that were developing these apps didn't even have a shipping unit to test it on. It says a lot about the agility of the platform. So I really like that. There's a lot I don't like about it. I'm working on a review that I'm going to put up on my website, and we'll link to
cool.
In the next couple of days. And we'll write up some of those thoughts. But so far, it's very powerful, and I am really enjoying it. And I'm enjoying it in a way, the punditry has said this is such a content consumption device. You're going to watch your videos on it. You're going to read your books on it. You're going to do whatever it is you do on it. You're going to take in data on it. And I really see that as I'm bullish on that, but I'm just as bullish on the ability of this device to allow you to create and to allow professionals to create information on this and share it with others as efficiently as as they ever have been able to in the past. I think it's a really exciting evolution.
Yay! We're so glad you're the early adopter of the group, Peter. So Dana
bleeding edge, the painful bleeding edge. But that leads us to the next story, which is some of the early marketing folks are coming out, with it, and media types are coming out saying this is not the device that's going to save the world, and I certainly don't think it's going to save the media world. Ad Age writes that iPad has a lot of sizzle and no strategy, all sizzle no steak, and that's. I think it's important to recognize that.
When's the last time Ad Age did a computer review?
That's kind of a funny there thing, you go. Right. I mean, that's a sign of the times, right? I mean, but part of it is because the big thing, and I downloaded the first couple of apps on this that I downloaded were the big magazines. This was supposed to save the print and advertising industry. So what did I download? The first big three magazines: Time Magazine, GQ Magazine, and Popular Science. Time Magazine took the most conservative approach, I think, of the three. It's essentially a rejiggered PDF. GQ Magazine took kind of a hybrid approach, and interesting, if you hold the device portrait orientation, you get a really fluid kind of reading experience. If you turn it landscape, you get essentially the PDF of a 2-page spread side by side, which is great, particularly for the designers who have spent a lot of time really designing the magazine. You get to see exactly what you get in the magazine, so you have the choice. And then Popular Science,
I think there's a lot of value to that. Just my 2 bits there.
No, I really agree. I mean, there's something, especially if you're trying to help people make a transition into digital media. And then Popular Science, those guys, man, hats off. Their implementation of this is really as Minority Report as you can get right now, particularly in the first week of this launch. It was a pleasure getting lost in this magazine, and it seemed to have the best balance of usability, readability, and visual enhancement that really makes it feel like I needed to be reading this. There's no way I could get this experience not on the iPad. It just was that good.
That's cool.
And then Peter, what would you say to the person who says, I really only want this to play games and watch movies?
Great.
Yeah.
It is, as a gaming device, oh man. Man. Well, games and so I have a number of games. And I don't want to belabor this sort of mini review, but games like Mirror's Edge from Electronic Arts, which if you are a gamer at all, you may have heard about Mirror's Edge for the Xbox, which was a stunning kind of very stark and wonderful trip through kind of the dystopian future as a parkour runner. And they've translated this game really frenetically to the iPad in such a good way. I mean, it is a terrific racing game, and it's really easy to get engrossed in it. The performance is great, not a lag at all. But I'm also a Sudoku and crossword puzzle guy, and so
I was going to say even the like the low tech games.
Yeah.
I went into the Apple Store and held one for a little bit and played around with it, and I played is it Flight Control?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, which you would think, the same thing but bigger.
Right.
Whatever. It was actually really cool.
It's really cool.
They made use of the space on that.
And that's the biggest thing. I mean, that space, you cannot underestimate the power of having that space in your hands. I mean, even just the apps that ship with the iPad, being able to hold the New York Times website in your hands, being able to hold, I spend a lot of time on Wired magazine on the website, and being able to interact with it, with your fingertips, it changes the experience. And I think as developers, and designers become more comfortable with that, we're going to see a lot of great stuff out of this. So
it's going to get cooler.
It's going to get very cool. I also downloaded. They've been talking a lot about the Marvel Comics app, and it is, I haven't read comics since I was 15. I've read the Watchmen and some of the big kind of graphic novels, but I downloaded a couple of Marvel comics, and boy, this thing. It's easy to get sucked in. I mean, it creates essentially animated storyboards, which
That's
is
exciting. I didn't know about that.
Really,
that's very cool.
Really powerful.
I just introduced comics to my 7-year-old this past week. Actually, the Easter Bunny did. So the Easter Bunny initiated this, but the little comic book store that I think the Easter Bunny shops at had a 50% off sale this weekend.
Yeah,
man, we because I guess Marvel bought Disney. I didn't know, or Disney bought Marvel. Sorry,
Disney bought Marvel. That's right.
Yeah, so there are all these, for a 7-year-old. Anyway, I'm enjoying them. I'm going back through. I'm like, I used to love the Uncle Scrooge and Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and like they're still some of those they're still doing. And anyway, so
I think you guys
cool
are dating
stuff.
yourselves at this point.
Yeah, and now we're just way off target.
We are way off target, but I want to say one more thing, because
Sorry about that.
a lot of what people have been talking about is the book reading experience on this, particularly as compared to the Kindle, and I think this is something I'm excited to explore. Right now, the iPad is the only reader, I believe, that will allow you to read all 3 major stores. So the iBook store from Apple, the Kindle store, the app that Amazon has released, the Kindle app, that allows you to access your Kindle library, buy books. You have to buy books through the website, but to take books into your device, and the Barnes & Noble e-reader store to be able to read all of your collection of books from any of these stores. This is the only device that will allow you to do it.
You know what I used to call that? I had a term for it called competitive advantage. Just kidding, not my term. But
yeah, I was going to say you made that up in 1930.
I invented this term once upon a time in economics.
Right.
Yeah, competitive advantage, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, well, I would, because there's something. I had the Kindle. I was a huge fan of the Kindle.
Yeah, you were.
And I was very excited to get rid of the Kindle, because as great as it was also, there were a lot of limiting factors, and the Amazon app on the iPad is stellar. It is absolutely stellar. Hats off to Amazon for delivering a platform that really extends across all these devices. It is so. If I were a Kindle Amazon fan and I didn't have one of these devices, I would choose the iPad hands down if all I wanted to do was read books, because it's such a great experience. And finally, the Netflix has come out with an app that allows you to stream your Netflix on-demand content directly to the iPad is really killer.
Oh, that's cool.
The only thing missing at this point is Hulu. ABC.com has come out with a great one, and Netflix. And so, I think Hulu is having some real political challenges, and that's unfortunate because this is another great way to watch ad-inserted television on another device. And I think where Kindle has really gotten that, and they've said, we're going to be everywhere you can read books, you're going to read Amazon books. NBC has not. NBC is just floundering, and they can't figure out how to get over that hump of we want to be everywhere, we want our ads to be everywhere, and they don't know how to make that turn. Last but certainly not least, we talked about Square. Last week, the application allows you to take credit card payments directly on your iPhone. They have not yet released the iPhone app out of beta, but the iPad app was launched on day one. And so now I can take credit card payments from God knows who that would want to give me their credit card number. But I can do it on my iPad, and that seems really liberating for some reason. So that's it. That's the mini review of the iPad.
Thank you, Peter.
So look for, I'll be putting lots of words down over the coming week. For our weekly interview here, we have with us one of my favorite people who I never talk to. This is it's sort of how I feel about people like Paul Rudd, the actor. I feel like if he only knew me, we would be awesome drinking buddies. Except for the difference here is I actually know this guy. I still don't talk to him enough. His name is Jake Poinier of BoomVang Creative Group. Jake, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thank you.
You're a hero for jumping in at the last minute and talking with us today. We're talking about publishing. Jake, you are how would you classify yourself? I think of you as a professional writer, but what do you do? What is your overall service here?
I guess that I generalize it to corporate copywriting. That kind of defines it the best because I don't do a lot of creative stuff, which a lot of people focus on. I'm not a novelist. I focus really on business communications in all of its different forms, whether it's print or web or video, radio. I've pretty much worked in every different format, and that's how I do it.
So, and can I jump in here and just say how impressive that is to me? Like, just because I've had to, I've had to either come up with or work with people who, it's such a hard thing to do, and it's I think pretty underappreciated in the creative writing community that you were referring to. Somebody who really can, really work within the confines of the corporate environment, and so I'm excited to hear what you have to say, because I just think that I think that there's a whole lot to appreciate about somebody who can really commit themselves to doing this well.
Done well, it's a lot of fun. I've got friends that focus only on magazine writing, for example, and that's all well and good, but you're doing a lot of fishing and not a lot of catching. Whereas if you focus on business, the good thing about it is that there are tons of companies out there that need help.
Oh, yeah, there are.
And a lot that don't know they need help.
Yeah, and that they come to me with a broken whatever.
Well, and then that's sort of the crux of what I want to start with here, which is this idea that when you're a small business, and I hear this a lot from clients, small to medium sized businesses who really don't have the resources to to hire out for everything they want to do, and yet and so they take it on themselves to say, I can write the website copy, I'll just get that done, and one of two things happen: either it doesn't get done, or it doesn't get done well. And so I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what kinds of clients you look for, and how you go about working with the clients, and why somebody might want to hire a professional business writer.
Well, I think the metaphor that I'll retreat into is one. If you've worked with graphic designers, you've heard them refer to layout grout.
Sure. Yeah.
You guys familiar with that expression?
I've never heard that expression.
Why don't you go ahead and describe it?
I have not either, and I've worked with lots of graphic designers.
Okay, layout grout is the kind of the dirty term for the fact that people are looking at the pictures and illustrations and not reading the copy.
Aha.
essentially it's the words that fill the page. And I think a lot of people kind of treat it that way, where if as long as there's text there, that we're good for the moment. As long as it's somebody who writes better than you do, that we're good for the moment. I think that the trick comes when there's that moment of recognition that either somebody says something, or you're not getting the results that you want, or things like that. But the problem is that most people are reluctant to tell you that your copy stinks. And some people know enough to know that it's inadequate. Other people don't know, and they think, oh, well, this is good enough. So that's kind of where the moment of recognition that something is inadequate is important. Now, one of my best, I'm going to say the best salespeople that I have working for me happen to be graphic designers. That when they're pitching a project to somebody, they will be upfront and say, gosh, what you've got here is not good enough. And it really can be said better, and can be said with more impact. It can be much punchier, more powerful, more professional, all that. So I actually, while I joke about graphic designers being snide about writers, the fact is that they're actually some of my best friends out there, because they're the ones at the grassroots going, oh God, I'm going to create this wonderful, beautiful website, and that's going to be filled with lousy copy. That's not going to do the client any good, and it's ultimately not going to do them any good.
Well, I think oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, okay.
You have a better voice than I do. I
I don't know about that. I think I'm just the only female voice. I think. What I was going to say is, I think, especially with copy, you're right. I think that it's an easy thing to people. If people feel like they can grammatically put a sentence together, they feel like it's passable. But I think, when they're faced with an example of something that's really awesome and exactly what you were just talking about, really punchy and includes a call to action, they're like, oh yeah, my copy needs help. So I think I don't know if you found that at all, but just, being able to contrast, well, here's a page written well, and here's a page just written.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what it comes down to. And I know, Pete, as a photographer, will appreciate this, but anybody who's got a camera thinks that they can take a great photo. And yeah, sure, if you gave them 15 rolls and a couple of days, maybe they'll come out with a couple of good photos. But just because somebody's got the tool, whether it's a website or a blog or a brochure or whatever the venue is, just because you can get words on the page doesn't necessarily mean that those are the words that you wanted. So I think your point is a really good one, Megan.
And I was going to say really quick that I love, as you're talking about, working with graphic designers and stuff, I just think it's one of the beautiful things in marketing is when you get that tension, you get such a better product than if you have, say, the graphic designer taking over the entire project and calling, the copy just filler and assuming it, and selling it maybe to the client that way, or whatever. There's so many elements sometimes to great marketing execution where you've got experts in say marketing itself, expert in sales perhaps, experts in copywriting, experts in graphic design. Ideally, and sometimes I guess, people have multiple, things they're experts at. But ideally, if you can put those things together and create a little bit of that tension, I think sometimes that's when you get the most amazing product out the back end.
Jake, how do you educate your clients on what they need to expect from projects that you take on? What are the measurables that you outline that you should? We have with us, I'm for our.
Wow, that exists on a. I'm going to say that exists on a bell curve, and that's for the vast majority of people that I work with, they have some experience. They're an up and running business, and so they're either tired of what it is that they've been looking at for the past 2 or 3 years. or they're launching a new segment to their business, perhaps, or a new product, or things like that. And so, I wish more people would measure, honestly. And that's one of the things that I wrestle with a lot. I mean, I'm all about trying to experiment with different subject lines, for example, when you're doing an email broadcast. Test A against B against C. And a lot of people are reluctant to do that. To try two different landing pages for an email broadcast or things like that. For me, those are the types of things that I would really love more people to do.
Why do you think they're reluctant? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer to probably all of us sitting around the virtual roundtable here.
I don't know. Maybe it's like stepping on the scale in the bathroom after a long being afraid what you're going to see.
I've always loved that word. I'm sure you use it all the time with clients or whatever, but the word test. I mean, because you can make so many assumptions, but, without testing, how do you know?
Right.
I think your analogy of the bathroom scale is a good one. I think the other piece is people have this kind of innate sense of momentum, and unless you know the value of testing through experience, unless you've actually seen the results of testing, mostly you just want to get through it and move to the other side and say you're done and check it off a list. You've done this project. You're finished. And now you can move on to the next big thing. So I think there are these two competing, at least in my experience, you get clients who know they should test, who they know they should be doing these things. But particularly if you're a smaller business, if you need to rely on some of the momentum and inertia that you're trying to build up in these projects, you just want to get, iterate and move on.
Right.
Or sometimes the copy's been developed through a whole lot of, bureaucracy or say you're the marketing director.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, it's been approved, and do you really want to, put something up the flagpole again? I assume you kind of deal with that sometimes.
Sure. Well, the example that comes to mind, funny enough, the larger the company, the more risk averse they tend to be. There was an example, one of my clients that had a really, really cool sweepstakes that they were running, basically they were giving an opportunity for a golf foursome at one of the world's most famous golf courses. And the problem was that they didn't want to use a sweepstakes mentality for promoting it, and they wanted to use their fairly standard, I don't know how I describe their usual advertising, but it's pretty high class, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I did everything in my power to convince them, hey, you guys, this of all the times that you want to go out and grab people by the lapel and shake them, this is your time, because you want 5,000 people to sign up for this sweepstakes. And they only ran one advertisement in one newspaper to announce it. I mean, they didn't really, they didn't do all the things that I kind of had recommended. And so when it came time to ask what the results were, they weren't good. Yeah. And talk about a blown opportunity, because it was an incredibly good offer, and usually that's where you fall short, is that people don't want to make a very good offer because they're afraid they're going to have to give away a lot. Here, these guys were giving away a great thing, and then pulled the punch.
And Jake,
it happens even in big companies that have lots of money to spend, and I get paid either way. But I would rather have you go, holy crap, you melted down my server with all of the responses.
And Jake, I have absolutely worked with at least one individual, but that would say at the end of, like the example you're talking about, say, well, but okay, but we protected the brand because we had, everything needs to be luxury, and we certainly don't want to mess around with that, and we don't want to take any chances, and everything needs to be very controlled, and our brand is luxury, so, gosh, maybe we could get, a bigger impact. But I've worked with people that don't want to make that trade-off, which I think is very much a blown opportunity. And I'm curious, when you're talking about like emailing or, maybe, I don't know how involved you get with, well, web design and maybe, search optimization and that kind of thing, or especially social media, when you have companies, especially as you mentioned, the larger companies that are very brand protective and feel like, the way that they've been speaking or the way they've constructed copy over the years and, been approved and whatever is sort of, the stuff that they regurgitate over and over again is, that's just part of the brand. And so it's really scary to take chances that really, like, the rules change a little bit when you're talking about competing for attention online. I mean, do you deal with that very often, that, you really are trying to have to maybe work with clients to say, well, you know what, this isn't print, this is online and we've got to work harder to grab attention, or we've got to be at least a little less controlling because we can't be as controlling in certain avenues online.
Yeah, I think people slowly but surely come to that conclusion, but citing this example, and you've kind of touched on something that's really I have gotten to the point where I find it humorous. I do a newsletter for this particular client, and extraordinarily successful company, extraordinarily successful. So I do the newsletter, and there's in the newsletter, there's always a letter from the president. And the first time I got that, of course, I edited it, made it tight, made it snappy, all that. And I got slapped down hard. And so now I've gotten to the point that all I do is, if there is a misspelled word or needs to have a comma, or it's like, who am I to argue with this guy who is a multimillionaire, I am sure, many times over. And so it's like, all right, what it comes down to is, and I wish I could come up with a better expression, but you got to choose your battles, and you got to try to figure out where the places are. You know what, company newsletter, it doesn't matter. Nobody's probably reading this article anyway. Doesn't matter. So, I would rather expend my energy, and, even though I lost that particular battle with the sweepstakes example, I do think that the next time that type of thing comes around, that they're going to be more willing to say, hey, maybe we could really punch things up a little bit, make it a little bit more, Ed McMahon, you may be a winner, or what have you.
So can I ask a question, and it's somewhat self-serving, as Peter knows, but I consider myself a fairly decent writer, and I'm doing this for the good of our audience as well, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that struggles with this problem. But I consider myself a decent writer, but I've realized, I told Peter yesterday, I've realized that I can be a little bit long-winded. So what I'm trying to do is be more concise. But it's challenging, it's challenging. And this kind of goes back to my first job out, after I was in the Peace Corps. It was like this woman who worked for me, she was constantly like, say it in fewer words, say it in fewer words. And apparently that didn't stick in my head well enough. But do you have any, tips for those of us who are out there? Because a lot of us do marketing writing, even though we would not consider ourselves expert copywriters like yourself. But do you have any tips for those of us who are trying to be more concise, trying to be more engaging with our writing?
Actually, a while back, it's probably a couple months back, I blogged on precisely that topic, which was, what's the best piece of writing advice that you ever got? And got a bunch of interesting responses from it. And I also posted it on a little group that I run on the Wall Street Journal and a variety of different places. And between all those different venues, got some interesting responses. Mine was when I was in my first magazine job at Golf Digest, and the editor of the trade magazine, I was working at the trade magazine at the time, Lou Fishman, great guy, hilarious character, and he would just bloody your copy. It was just like there was more red than white when he was done with it. But he was just a superior editor and a great guy, and he was just, that was the way he was. Just an old-fashioned editor's editor. And his best tip that he gave to me was, go ahead, write your story, write whatever it is, and then get your pen out and cross out either the first, second, or third drafts, or all three. And by eliminating your first or second paragraphs, or even a third in some cases, you're probably that's where you want to start. And a lot of times you're just vamping, and you're just kind of
like ramping up to the story and backgrounding and.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, okay, get to the heart of it. And now I've actually reached the point, having been doing this for more than 20 years of writing and editing, I've gotten to the point where I do that subconsciously. Mm-hmm. But there are times when I'll write something and go, you know what? that first paragraph is a piece of garbage. Get it out of here.
So you think just kind of what comes out first is probably just you ramping up into getting ready to talk about what's really important? Is that?
Yep. You're probably
okay.
You're probably clearing your throat. You're probably over explaining. That to me is one of the things that that helps me the most, is just to get right to it. Some people edit as they write, and that's a slower process in general. And other people are able to just kind of dump stuff out on the page. I tend to be more of the former. I tend to kind of write a little bit more slowly, but edit myself as I go along. And so, some people may not have as much of a risk of doing that.
That's such a great point. Have you ever done NaNoWriMo, Jake?
I got 1,500 words into it.
Wow.
I told you I'm not a novelist.
Well,
what is it, 10,000 words?
No, it's 50,000 words in 30
50,000.
days. And so it ends up being, about 2,000 words a day, and, for 30 days. And I'm like you. I mean, I used to be an editor as I wrote, and it was very slow. And, I went to college for writing. That's what I have done all my life, and so it was extremely difficult to break some of those habits. But NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, every November is this opportunity to just vomit content onto paper, and I did it 7 years running, and
really?
I didn't finish a novel until 5 years in. That was my first quote win.
That's hard though. That is hard.
It's extremely hard, because you come up with all sorts of reasons not to write, or reasons to cheat or whatever. But the first time I did it, I realized that and I want to get back to your point, Jake, which is one of my writing professors in college is a woman named Jackie Burke, and she wrote a fantastic book called 20 Questions for the Writer. And one of her things that she always said was, you haven't really started writing until you finish the first draft. And I know she's not the only one to have said this, but the real exercise of the craft of writing it comes in the work that happens after you've gotten your ideas, your substantive ideas on the paper. And for me, I had to work that muscle so hard through NaNoWriMo, frankly. I thank NaNoWriMo for getting me over that hump, to be able now to just write quickly and edit and edit well afterward. I mean, that's a really powerful skill. And I think even for marketers, to be able to sit down and write 50,000 words in a month is a huge training ground for how to write business copy quickly and effectively. I'm a big fan of it. So
everybody in November, get ready.
Get ready for
Peter's
NaNoWriMo.
Gonna suck us all into NaNoWriMo.
That's right. Well, and I haven't done it. I have 2 books finished out of it, and I haven't done it since, because now I need to go to NaNoEdmo, National Novel Editing Month. And sadly, and no, it is. I think it's still a real thing. I think that's March, and sadly, and not a little ironically, I haven't edited these 2 books that I finished.
It's a 12-step plan.
It is a 12-step plan, right? So I'm on that train. What do you think about the iPad, Jake?
Well,
You just had to go there, Peter. You
Of course
just
I
had
did.
to.
Of course I did. Of course I did. Are you kidding?
I think, as you know, Pete, I'm a big Mac fan. I'm talking to you on my Mac right now. We've got a Mac laptop. We've got, I think, at last count, 7 different iPods in the house. And so Steve Jobs has certainly gotten more than his share of my income over the years. I'm not usually a first generation adopter. And so I'm probably going to wait until let other people work out the bugs, and then I will probably jump at it. I toyed with getting a Kindle, but this, to me, I mean, my guess would just be that it will be a better option than a Kindle. My one wish is that somehow Verizon could partner up with them, because
Amen.
I'm sitting here looking at my LG phone and giving it the finger. So I know that there's interactivity with the iPad that you probably have to go through AT&T, right?
Well, the version that was released this weekend is Wi-Fi only. So
it is. Okay.
So there's no AT&T.
There's no AT&T involved, and it is a spiritedly fast device. I got mine on Saturday, and it really is remarkable. I mean, it's gorgeous. But I think for me, and when this was announced in January, I got calls from 2 clients, within a half hour of the press releases hitting the wire, that they said, we want to find a way to get our content on the iPad. That's going to be where we get our training material out there. And when you start seeing some of the early takes on magazines that are hitting the iPad, and the 3 big ones right now, we've got GQ, Time magazine, and Pop Sci. Time is more of, you could get the same thing out of a PDF. GQ has done some interesting things in terms of maintaining, their overall design elements, but still fairly basic. And Popular Science has completely renovated how they deliver content. It's stunning. And so I'm really fascinated in it, in the iPad, in terms of what these apps and what these developers are going to be able to do to deliver their content on new devices, because this harkens the next generation of consuming content.
I think you're totally right, and that's why I say I'm a second generation adopter, and so I'm just trying to keep cool for the moment. But that is good to hear that it's as slick as I would imagine it to be.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Can I segue that really quickly here, Jay? Because I don't consider myself a writer. I've done lots of editing of copy, and I just got to say to all 3 of you, I am so impressed with people who can write well, and especially marketing copy. I think it's a fabulous talent and gift to have. So, Jake, I'm curious. So the segue here is, how do you see, or have you seen over the 20 years of your career, technology change the nature of what you do?
Well, as I said before, I started in the magazine business, and that was back in the days when you would run repro through a waxer and then paste stuff to boards.
Sweet.
And so I don't know if any of you have had experience with that, but it was truly a tedious process. And I think what it made you do was you had to be pretty precise about what you did, or you would make a lot of people mad and cause a lot of problems down the line. Because once something was run out on repro, if there was a mistake, you had to go and you had to physically take out an X-Acto blade and cut out the offending paragraph or offending word or offending letter or offending comma and physically remove it and then either replace it or leave it be or whatever. So that was the technology, and the guys on the consumer side were the first ones to get Macintosh computers and to start getting desktop publishing. That was in 1991, I think. that they started adapting to the desktop thing. So fast forwarding to what exists today, I mean, it's almost unimaginable how easy it is to make changes on the fly, to create something that looks exactly like what you want. So I think that the technology really, the flexibility that it offers to how people market. And, unfortunately, it's always been, I think it's just the type of people that get into the business that everybody's a last minute person. So that can cause some issues as far as, just because you can change something at the last minute doesn't mean that that's a good idea.
Interesting. That's interesting.
And, the truth still remains that a last minute change is upping your opportunity and percentage of making an error. Now, on a website, that's not that big of a deal. If I, if I make a mistake that is online, chances are it's going to take 2 seconds to fix, and it's not a big deal. I still do a lot of print, print is far from dead, and it's just a question of where stuff ends up. I mean, it would be weird if you walked into your average, I don't know, to use an example, your average golf shop. If you walked into a golf shop, there weren't brochures and materials to grab and read about various equipment or other things like that, it'd be kind of weird. And I suppose that nowadays, you could if you've got your iPhone with you and you type in the UPC code or whatever, scan it, that you can get the information that way. But I still think there are a lot of people that are that paper is still a comfort zone.
Yeah, we'll be able to get rid of them soon enough.
Yeah, I get, and I guess maybe that to follow up on your question, to be more specific about it, I think that maybe is one of the surprises, is that paper still is as powerful as it is. People still do direct mail. That's still a very good way to reach people in certain aspects. One of the struggles that I'm dealing with right now with a client is trying to send out a large broadcast email and not get trapped in spam filters.
Yeah,
right.
Is a headache to beat all headaches. And I mean, you can't. I got put in a spam filter the other day for sending somebody a note that said thanks in the subject line with an exclamation point. And I think that the exclamation point dumped me into spam.
It's an immediate trigger now.
And so how do you get away with that, or away from that? If you want to say something about the CEO's message, and because it's all caps and therefore screaming, and therefore it's spam, that's a really nasty thing to get around. And so that to me is one of the troublesome aspects of being a marketer in today's day and age, is that there are a lot of things that are the SEO is the positive aspect of it, where you can get really highly targeted and really, I started up a freelance advice column called Dear Dr. Freelance. I just launched it the other day. So I want to turn it into kind of like a Dear Abby type thing. And it's my first experience with WordPress. And I am blown away with how much you can do so easily with the SEO that, 2 years ago, you were having to hand code into the HTML. And so that's kind of the flip side of it, is that, you've got these incredible tools like SEO that make it much easier to target people. And then the other part of it is that there are all sorts of doors that can get slammed in your face and you don't even know it. And how do you reach all of the people all the time when most people don't even know what the heck you mean when you say whitelist our address? Most people don't. I'm going to say 90% of the population, maybe 95, doesn't know what that means and wouldn't know how to do it if you sat next to them and took their mouse.
You're at the risk of opening a huge can of worms. This is exactly the kind of conversation we need to have in a part 2. I think we're winding up our time here, but this transition, helping to educate, the masses into, the consumption of media digitally is an important one, and I think it's fascinating to hear that you are thinking about this at such a level. Where can you give us, just to wrap up, a couple of resources you might recommend for marketers who want to learn more about how to create, how to write well, how to edit well, and how to work with and hire copywriters?
Well, I describe myself as kind of an omnivore, and so I literally have RSS feeds of pretty much every freelance and or writing blog out there. At the risk of dodging your question, I think that if you go to some of the usual culprits and Copy Blogger, the Freelance Zone, things like that those are pretty good places to start, and then you can kind of spider web your way out from there. But the other thing that I find useful, even though I'm not always in these different elements, I read a lot of advertising blogs. I don't know if you're familiar with the Ad Contrarian. He's kind of a curmudgeonly guy who I'm going to just say he rips on a lot of sort of trendy communications type. So that's kind of an interesting, just to get the other side of that. I like some photography blogs, a photo editor, Waiting on a Moment. There are a couple different photographers that have some incredibly interesting takes that are directly applicable to the business of being a writer. And so, those are, I probably add a new RSS every day. And so, I can, unfortunately, I can get kind of waylaid because of that. And then, as far as making yourself a better writer, I think part of it, and I'm not going to recommend that everybody try to do NaNoWriMo, because I'd be a hypocrite, because I wasn't able to struggle through. I was one and done. But just the act of writing, whether you're blogging just for yourself, that's kind of a good way to work some things out in your own way. And then the other thing is that, if you're not a great writer, it doesn't make you a bad person. I am a terrible graphic designer. I recognize that I have no talent whatsoever. I can recognize if a page is well designed, and I can say, oh, okay, yeah, I get why you did that, but I couldn't design a page to save my life. So I think, recognizing where your limits are and being okay with where your talents lie is okay. Yes, everybody should be a more skilled writer, and it helps, even if you're writing better emails. To I think Megan's point earlier, a 2-sentence email is better than a 5-sentence email. And that's just the way it is, because most people are not going to read.
Sure.
And so, I think shorter is better. Here's your irony. Here's your yin and yang, is that shorter is better, but the more you write, the better you get at writing short. Did you follow my Zen?
I did. I was going to say, that is very Zen. It's Twitter Zen is what that is. To your point, I think Twitter actually has taught me a lot about the importance of brevity in communicating. At 140 characters, you learn a lot about about how to get your point across and what punctuation and vowels you can skip and still mean something.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, well, Jake, I'm telling you, my friend, you are my hero for jumping in and sharing your decades of wisdom on working in this craft, and I hope you will come join us again sometime and finish this conversation. I feel like we have a lot more to talk about.
Oh, it's a lot of fun, and I think in some ways you can only scrape the surface in a half hour, and there's a million different ways to do it, and you got to do it in ways that make you happy and hopefully make other people happy.
Absolutely. Well, where can people find you, Jake Poinier?
Well, a couple different places. My web portfolio site is BoomVangCreative.com. And that's BoomVang with a V as in Victor.
Not the German W.
Not
BoomVang.
The freelance advice column that I just started up is Dear Dr. Freelance, and that's DEARDR freelance.com. And so that's kind of in beta right now, but that's where I've been playing around with WordPress and trying to figure things out. So if people have questions about freelancing, I answer them. So that's that. And then my regular blog is jakepoinier.blogspot.com, and that's JakePoinier.
Fantastic. Jake Poinier, thanks so much for joining us on The Naked Marketers.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
I love Jake Poinier. I've known Jake for a long time, and I'm so glad that he was willing to step in and talk to us a little bit. I think he's, in terms of just having somebody who's doing the work every day, sharing some of his thoughts and wisdom is very powerful. So I hope you listeners got a lot out of that.
I did. That was great.
Yeah, I did. I mean, that's the fun thing I think about doing this podcast is we bring these guests on, and I just get excited, to show up and do the show because there's so much to learn. It's not like we're just bringing in people at least half to date, and I know again we've got some great people coming up that have areas of expertise that really are illuminating. So, if you have any interest in marketing or promoting your business or just promoting yourself or, whatever your background is, I think this stuff just brings a whole lot, at least to me doing the podcast. So I hope a lot of people are getting a lot out of it.
And we live to serve Dane.
Yeah, right. A lot of people do.
Well, not enough people, never enough people, but a lot of people.
In my own mind, that's the way.
So we have tools, and I have tools.
Just a couple.
Yeah, I know, but I'm excited about this because it's as low tech as I've ever gotten. I can't believe I can't
believe you're putting a book on the tools section.
I know, and let me tell you this: I actually am looking for the books on both Kindle and iBooks to see where they are because I want to replace them so I can read them anytime. 2 books on writing, given the tone and topic of our interview today, that really helped me in my formative years as a budding young writer and journalist. The first one is Writing Down the Bones, Freeing the Writer Within by Natalie Goldberg. This is an incredible book, and Natalie Goldberg is absolutely fabulous and has some really fantastic thoughts and inspiration on how to write fluidly and effectively, how to communicate quickly. And then William Zinsser. The book is called On Writing Well. This thing has been in publication for ever, and it's much more of a fantastic kind of case-based book where he's actually dissecting so many wonderful examples and of good and terrible writing and helping you analyze what works and what doesn't. Both of these books are indispensable, and if you are a writer or you're a marketer learning to write, and you want to have the indispensable books of inspiration and tools on your desk, these are the 2: William Zinsser On Writing Well and Writing Down the Bones from Natalie Goldberg, and we'll link to those in the show notes.
Thank you, Peter. I'll pick those up.
Yeah,
Wow,
they're
you're
really
edifying,
terrific.
Peter. I, you know what? Did I say I look forward to these podcasts because they're so edifying for me?
It's really just Peter.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, hey, I get to listen to Peter for an hour.
Oh,
Sweet.
right.
Please,
That's right.
please.
It's all about Peter.
I'm blushing.
Awesome.
Who's
I don't
next?
have anything to add.
Dane?
Sorry to be the loser.
You know what? During this podcast, I got this great email that says
Nothing like really preparing in advance.
you will like to read it's this woman who's a U.S. citizen. She's 48 years old, and she won the lottery in the United Kingdom, but she wasn't able to get all of her money. If I sent her some, how does this work?
How does this work? Parse that, and let's follow through with it and see what we can get out of it
to
next
receive
week.
their payments, and I saw your name and email address as one of the beneficiaries. Oh my gosh, I showed up as a beneficiary.
Wow.
Oh, emails just pays off.
You should
Email is
definitely follow up on
This
that.
is another example of why mass email marketing is such a boon to lead generation.
Well, and I think more importantly, now we know that Dane's not actually paying attention when we're doing it. He's like sending through
I couldn't. Look, I get emails that the subject says, "You will love to read this." You know,
You damn well better love to read it.
I believe that. So I just had to check and see what it was. Guys, look what I would have missed out.
That's right.
Oh,
Well,
man.
we're glad
I
you
don't
did.
have any time to lose on this one. I probably should get rolling real fast.
Yeah, we
because
should.
I am listed, my name and email, as a beneficiary.
You should take this one and run with it. And speaking of, in case future benefactors would like to get a hold of you, where would they find you, Dane?
They can find me at strike10media.com. That's strike10, 10 is 10. Or you can follow me on Twitter. I think I put a tweet up a couple of days ago.
Oh, you did? Just one?
Yeah, that's
Alta
great.
Dane on Twitter.
Alta Dane on Twitter. So all of our Nigerian listeners,
Yeah.
that's where you can find Dane.
Solicit your funds.
If you want to find me, exactly.
That's right. And Megan, where can we find you?
I am at Megan Strand on Twitter, or my website is Encouraged with an IN, Encouraged, and it is being updated as we speak, right, Peter?
Fantastic. Yes, it is.
As we speak, as in you're not paying attention either? What?
I'm coding.
I am Pete Wright on Twitter, and you can find me at fifthandmain.com. You can also find links to all of our past episodes on thenakedmarketers.com, and from there you can subscribe to the show on iTunes. You can grab the RSS feed. You can jump over to our Facebook fan page. Pretty much any place you want to follow us. And we actually finally set up a Twitter feed for the show, which is simply Naked Markets. And so if you want to follow just the show, you'll get all the updates on the website and episode links there. So unless we have anything else, which I don't think we do, on behalf of Dane and Megan, I am Pete
I'll
Wright.
read more email.
Well, we could do that. We'll do that on the
kidding.
way out. Thank you very much for downloading and listening, everybody. Until next week, this has been The Naked Marketers.